بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Takaful online course. And today we shall discuss one of the Sharia contract. As I just remind you again that we have started discussing some of the Sharia contract, of course in a very brief approach, highlighting the overall concept of the contract in addition to some basic rules and requirements and how this Sharia contract has been applied in the context of Takaful. That's basically the objective of this series of Sharia contracts in Takaful. And today we talk about the Jualah, which is again an additional Sharia contract used in the Takaful context. And Jualah basically is an open promise by one party to basically pay whoever perform a particular task. Is a kind of an open promise binding on the initiator, binding on the promisor to anyone basically who can perform that task. So upon the completion of the task, you'll be entitled for a reward or for a prize as a result of the completions of that specific task. So it is a kind of a unilateral contract binding on the initiator, binding on the promisor only, but it's not binding on the others. But just give you an example. If I say, for example, I lost, let's say my watch, I lost a watch, or a mobile, or I lost a car, or I lost a key, any valuable item or asset, then I will make a promise, anyone finds my car, basically will get a reward of 1,000. So this kind of initiative or this kind of promise is binding on me as a promisor, but it's not binding on the others. So everyone who's interested to engage in this kind of engagement and perform this task, upon finding the car, he will be entitled to get the price of 1,000. So this kind of thing, we call it Jualah. And Jualah basically is permissible in Sharia, and it is allowed by Sharia, and it has been basically mentioned in the Quran al-Karim in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. And it is by definition again a contract in which one party, we call him al-Jail or the offerer, basically offer specific compensations or specific rewards, specific money to the jail, who is the person who basically amil, who will perform the task, to anyone, or this one compensation, we call it al-Jur, the money, the award, the prize, al-Jur, to anyone who is the amil, who will achieve a determined result, basically in a known or unknown period. So basically one of the criteria of Jualah is that Jualah has an ambiguity and has a gharar, yes, but yet it is permissible. So you have to understand that not any existence of gharar will render the transactions invalid. So it depends. And keep in mind here we are talking about a unilateral contract, not an exchange contract. Unilateral contract, as you know, like tabarru, like what's so called Jualah and others, accommodate ambiguity and gharar. That's number one. And also even in some partnership, like the return, for example. Return, when you do mudaraba, the return is not known. So you may get a profit, you may get zero profit, and you may end up in a losses. So there is an ambiguity in that. So that kind of ambiguity is still allowed in Sharia. So it doesn't mean that the existence of gharar will basically immediately render the transactions invalid. So here it depends what contract we are talking about, and what kind of gharar we are talking about, and what level, degree of gharar we are referring to here. Anyway, so despite the existence of gharar in Jualah, Jualah is a permissible contract, and there is a Sharia standards of IOF on this Jualah, so you may refer to it for further details and information. So of course when we talk about the Jualah, there are elements. We have the promisor, the person who basically initiated the task and announced the award, and basically the amil, the person who will perform the task, and the jewel or the prize and the reward that will be given. There are some, of course, basic rules that govern this kind of application in Islamic finance, and there are different forms in practice on this. If I may just give some examples on this, like explorations of minerals and extractions of water. It could be a form of tenders by the government. So tenders is a form of basically Jualah. Commissions of projects to extract waters or minerals or gas and oil, it could be in a form of tenders, in a form of Jualah, meaning that you make a promise, everyone basically discover the oil in this field, we have a contract of, let's say, 1% revenue, or basically an engagement of 100 years, whatever kind of price that you can agree upon. Then people will try their best to do that. Or if it could be customizing commissions, Jualah as well, that one is allowed also by Sharia, and it has been mentioned also clearly in IOV standard. So the other things of Jualah is the collection of debt. You know, if you collect me a debt, basically you will get, let's say, 2% of it, 3% of it, or I give you a Jualah of such and such. So this one is fall under the Jualah. Also brokers discovers inventions, design, and so on and so forth. Now, if we go back to the context of, we may have the chance to discuss the Jualah in details in the series of Fiqh al-Mu'amalat. But at these junctions, we just want to give a high descriptions on what is Jualah about and try to put it in the context of Takaful. That's basically the objective of the discussions of the Sharia contract in Takaful. But in Fiqh Mu'amalat, we may dive in details on this specific contract. Now, again, if you put this one in the context of Takaful, Takaful basically, this kind of Jualah could be found in two areas in Takaful. Number one is on the investment side. The investment side, it is also this one applicable to the sukuk, to the fund managements, and the investment in general. And it is also applicable to Takaful, because Takaful will act as a mudarib in deploying the funds in different investment classes. So basically, the Takaful operator will invest the fund in a different investment classes, such as sukuk, for example, stock market, Sharia compliant stock market, money market, REITs, ETFs, venture capital, private equity, special project, and so on and so forth. So they will basically invest the money with the objective to generate revenue. And normally in the investment community, you have this kind of revenue budget and a specific target on a yearly basis. So they have what's so-called an investment return target based on the basically meeting agreed upon and budget that has been agreed upon. And the Takaful operators, through that investment arms, try to achieve that kind of KPI. And this kind of basically rate which has been budgeted, you know, by the approved by the board. So again, if you achieve that kind of KPI, so-called, basically you'll be entitled for such bonuses. If you exceed that kind of revenue or rate of return, you may be entitled on whatever over and above that agreed upon revenue. That kind of incentives, we call it, which have the form of revenue and money return under the concept of Jualah. So that kind of incentives, that kind of bonuses given are basically on the concept of Jualah, meaning that if you achieve the KPI, you will get this and this. If you exceed the rate of return budgeted, you will get this and this. So if you are below the KPI, you are not entitled to get anything by virtue of the contract of Jualah, because Jualah is a prize given only upon realizations of the objective, meaning upon achieving the KPI. This is why in some financial institutions, you know, when you have a specific KPI, you will get a bonus. So that bonus basically, from the interpretation of Sharia, is a Jualah, because that bonus is given upon achieving a specific KPI, is a prize that has been given upon realizations of a specific determined task based on Jualah. If you achieve the KPI, you will get this. If you achieve nothing or you don't achieve the KPI, you will get nothing. So that's basically the structure of a Jualah, is a prize given, awarded to a person as a result of his good performance, given him as incentives of his business operations, which is a certain and specific threshold. So this is One way that you can observe the Jualah in the context of the investment side, it is applicable to Takaful, and it's applicable to any fund management structures. And this one also is mentioned by the IOF standard, and this is allowed what's so-called kind of incentives. Now, the other Jualah that could be observed is basically in the distribution of the surplus. Surplus normally anyway is as a result of a good management and performance of the Takaful operator in the administrations of the funds, in the administrations of the claims, in the administrations of the payments, and so on and so forth. So basically there is a proper management and administration of the fund. That's basically at the end of the day we got some kind of surplus. This surplus basically, of course, there are different discussions on the surplus that we'll talk about it later on, you know, whether it goes back to the risk fund, it goes back to the charity, it goes back to the participant, or to be distributed, you know, between the Takaful operator and the participant. That's fiqh discussions. We'll take it you know, later on when we talk about the surplus. But as of now, if you take the approach of some jurisdictions that the surplus would be distributed between the participants and the Takaful operator, and in Malaysia context, you know, according to the regulations, you have up to 50% ceiling that you can have that kind of distributions when it comes to the ratio of the amount, meaning you can go to a 50%, and you can go lower than that, but you cannot go above that one, because it's determined by law. So the Takaful distributions, or the surplus distribution in Takaful, is basically is a form of Jualah, is a form of a prize, is a form of award given to the Takaful operators as a result of his good performance. So again, the concept is, if you perform well and you get such surplus, because the existence of the surplus reflect that the risk fund is healthy, and reflect that the Takaful operator had a very good year in the management of the funds and the administrations of the claims and the payments of the whatever some cover as a result of unforeseen circumstances and incidents, you know. So that kind of surplus will be again shared between the Takaful operator and the participants based on the concept of Jualah. Meaning, if you achieve such a surplus, you will be entitled of 50% from that kind of surplus. Of course, provided that the administrations is done properly, and keep in mind that we have the actuarials in one side, we have the Sharia board in one side, we have the Sharia compliance team, we have the risk management, and we have the Sharia audit. All basically this corporate governance structure will play a role of ensuring a proper, basically a performance and proper management and proper administrations of the funds through the various reports, in order to achieve such basically level of performance and be entitled for this kind of return in a form of reward. I think this is the overall descriptions of Jualah in the context of Takaful, and briefly, it is a kind of open promise by the promisor to the others that if you achieve such a KPI and perform such tasks, you will be entitled for such prize. And in Takaful, as we mentioned, we may find it in the good performance on the investment side, and also on the good performance of the management of the risk fund when you have a surplus. That's basically, in brief, the concept of Jualah in Takaful operator, and we shall see you, inshallah, in the coming sessions. With that, thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.